Now, brothers, in closing, I want you to take this pledge. When I say I want you to say I, and I'll say your name. I know that there's so many names, but I want you to shout your name out so that the ancestors can hear it. Take this pledge with me. Say with me, please. I say your name. Pledge that from this day forward, I will strive to love my brother as I love myself. I say your name. From this day forward, will strive to improve myself spiritually, morally, mentally, socially, politically, and economically, for the benefit of myself, my family, and my people. I say your name. Pledge that I will strive to build business, build houses, build hospitals, build factories, and enter into international trade for the good of myself, my family, and my people. I say your name. Pledge that from this day forward, I will never raise my hand with a knife or a gun to beat, cut, or shoot any member of my family or any human being except in self-defense. I say your name. Pledge from this day forward, I will never abuse my wife by striking her, disrespecting her, for she is the mother of my children and the producer of my future. I say your name. Pledge that from this day forward, I will never engage in the abuse of children, little boys or little girls, for sexual gratification. But I will let them grow in peace to be strong men and women for the future of our people. I say your name. Will never again use the B word to describe any female, but particularly my own black sister. I say your name. Pledge from this day forward that I will not poison my body with drugs or that which is destructive to my health and my well-being. I say your name. Pledge from this day forward, I will support black newspapers, black radio, black television. I will support black artists who clean up their acts to show respect for themselves and respect for their people and respect for the ears of the human family.
Okay, we are here and we are ready to rock and roll here this evening on this Wednesday evening. I am your teacher for spiritual lessons today. I'm Alonzo Richard Fleming, and I want to thank everybody for joining me this evening. Promise I won't be before you too long today. I've been schooled by some people about how long-winded I can be and staying on point, and so I want to be just as good of a student as I thought I was as a teacher. So we're going to get right into the lesson this evening. Let me just shut the music down. Make sure everything is working properly. Yep, all my flux capacitors are fluxing and we're ready to go. Our lesson this evening is entitled, Let My People Go, the one solution for Black America. I was going to play several clips for you this evening, but I decided not to because I just kind of wanted to get the points going and get out of your way for this evening. Summer has begun, for me at least. I love summer, my favorite time of the year. And so I know that a lot of people are out in the evening enjoying the cool weather. So I'm endeavoring not to stay on here too long. But our lesson this evening is one solution for Black America. And that is a subtitle. The title of the lesson is Let My People Go. And then the subtitle is One Solution for Black America. As we see the country becoming more and more fascist, and if you have done any reading of history of this country and our experience in this country, then you would know that this is not a new phenomenon, that this has come and gone over several generations. The pendulum is changing back to the fascists and, hate immigrants, hate Black folk, that kind of thing. So this is not new. The one thing that should be new is the response that we should consider. And, I was thinking today, if the scriptures, if the holy scriptures that we call holy don't apply to our situation and only give us something after we die or after we leave this manifestation, then one scripture is just as good as another. One religious and spiritual philosophy is just as good as another, because if it does not apply, if you aren't able to apply the readings and all the power that you brag about that we have as a result of having communion and atonement with the Creator, then it is just like it says in the Bible, sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. We're just making a lot of noise. So we want to deal with some solutions to the problem. In mathematics, and there are some math problems that when you do them, you will discover some of them have one solution, and then you can find a math problem that has many solutions, and you can have a math problem that has no solution. So the solution that I want to propose with respect to where, as we experience this cycle of America, except that this particular cycle is the changing of a world order and not just an internal thing that's happening. Ray Dalio, in his book, Principles for Dealing with a Changing World Order, he talks about the signs that you could see when a world order is changing from one dominant thought system to another. Even in the Bible, in Genesis chapter 2, it's subtly placed in there when it talks about the generations of heavens and earth. So you can see that there are cycles going on, and there's no world that lasts forever under the auspices of time. Anything that has a beginning has an ending. And even though you may think that this one is going to last forever, I'm here to tell you that it's not. And I'm here to further share with you that it is collapsing even as we speak. You see this in the political arena with the political parties are breached. The breach there is so far that they can't come to terms on much of anything. And I doubt if we're going to have a presidential election that anybody, any of the parties or any of the individuals are going to accept defeat. In Ray Dalio's book, Principles for Dealing with a Changing World Order, he talks about the signs that you would see as a result of the world order changing. And he said that you would see these things happening simultaneously, and it has happened over and over in history. And he went back 500 years, and he pointed out, I mean, the book is deep. He pointed out the signs that you would see that would give you an indication of where you are in the cycle. He said that there are basically 5 things that you would notice going on simultaneously when the world order was changing. He said that you would see internal conflict, not just disagreements politically, but internal conflict within the country that would, they're at the brink of a civil war. The conflict is so intense that it's at the verge of a civil war. And it has to do with the distribution of wealth. You would find that on one side, you would have those who want to protect the wealthy. On the other side, those who are talking about the wealth distribution is unequal to a degree that you have a super rich and a super poor. And as a result of this breach, that there would be populists who would rise on the left and on the right. On the left, you have the conservative populists to the brink of fascism. And on the right, you have this ultra socialist type mind on the left. You would see that occurring to where it would be that gulf that would be so wide. Another thing that you would notice is that the country or the mind that was over the system, the guiding system, it would be deeply in debt. The country would be deep in debt. And we're going through this debt crisis right now, or they negotiating it. But if you really pay attention to it, brothers and sisters, you will see that the debt crisis is really a situation where the country is broke. The country is broke. The country cannot afford the debt. How is it that you can have a debt, a credit limit, and all you got to do is raise your own credit limit? Well, we can do that because we are printing the money. We have the privilege of being the world's dominant money. The dollar is the world's dominant money at this time, but that's being challenged by the BRICS nations. But right now, we're able to print the money and give our self a credit increase. But if and when people stop accepting the dollar, then you're going to discover that we will have to live within our means and under a budget. Right now, we don't have to do that because we can borrow our way to have this illusion of a standard of living that simply is just an illusion based on debt. You see, the next thing that you would see occurring, in addition to civil unrest or conflict between individuals within the country and a debt crisis, you would see a challenge from emerging world powers. And obviously you can see that unrest is there. You see it with this Ukrainian war. And behind the scenes, you have more than what the CNN and Fox News and MSNBC are telling us. There are a lot of nations behind Russia, coming against Ukraine. And our media is not telling us, even though they're gearing up to take the country to full-fledged war against Russia. China is back there. The BRICS nations are back there. So Ray Dalio pointed to these things happening simultaneously that you would see at the end of a system. Another thing that you would see towards the end of a system is natural disasters just happen to be coming right there at the same time that you see all these other things occurring. Now I'm going somewhere with this, let my people go, because you're going to see this very thing happening in the book of Exodus, and we're going to go through this and we're going to show you the solution to it. But you would see natural disasters just happen to be occurring at the same time. And so we see with the pandemic, and the pandemic had the effect of causing the Fed to have to pump out a lot of dollars and print a lot of dollars. And as a result of that printing press going night and day, that we see the inflation, and now they can't call it back. And disaster after disaster after disaster, wind and snow and rain and hail is occurring in the country. And still more disease and things are going on with respect to this overall condition of the country. So these natural disasters would be coming, natural phenomenons and things occurring. And I believe that there's more to come. And then the last thing was a technological leap, that there would be a leap in technology. And then we see this occurring with AI. They're now coming. Now, my boys knew it off the bat, and I poo-pooed it. My boys was talking about, Dad, this thing is serious. So I kind of poo-pooed it for a while until, you know how we do. When somebody else tell us, then we'll take it. But if one of our own who actually are researching and telling it, we don't accept it. So I did the same thing. My sons was telling me AI is presenting a problem. So this technological leap that we're taking, you don't think China and Russia and Venezuela and all the other BRICS nations and all the nations that America has put her foot in their rear end as a result of the dollar's power, you don't think that they're doing things? You don't think that they're thinking about what's going on? You don't think that they don't see this? Now, what does that have to do with this whole idea of let my people go? The one solution for Black America. In the midst of all of this, Black America is sitting. And let's not pretend that it is just a thing of all of us. We are the problem, and you know we are the problem. You know, the conservatives and the right wing, they have raised money. Just another situation, a man got strangled on a subway, and they're raising money for the defense of the killer. You know, you see this thing. We're in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it, and the founding fathers of this country knew it. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson that said, when I think that God's patience won't last forever, and I think about slavery, I grieve for my country. There were many of them in the early days trying to address the problem of the Negro problem, as they called it. The Negro problem in the midst of this country that brought us over here and designated our people as perpetual slaves. This is the designation under Americanism. Now, I make a difference between America and the United States. And I'll get into that, I guess, at another time. But I just want to let you know that I make a difference between America and the United States. America is the ego, the Satan of the United States. See, the United States is built on principles. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And governments are set up in order to protect these rights. That is the principles of the United States, of which we are a part of. And see, it was the American mind, the fascist, the Confederate mind, that argued for the perpetuation of slavery and Jim Crow and all the subsequent behavior. And as a result of their persuasion, because the other side wanted to keep the country together, they took a more gradual approach to it. But keep in mind, brothers and sisters, there was rigorous debate about slavery. And even after the debate and after the country was founded and after slavery ended, they knew that the two peoples had to have a break from one another. I posted on my Facebook page today something that I got rebuked by in the DM there. I posted that women cannot hear the truth, and men cannot tell the truth. Let me put it another way. Women are afraid to hear the truth. Men are afraid to tell the truth, because the satanic mind has so saturated us at our core, and our core is truth, and we don't trust our core. And as a result of that, we're afraid to express our core. The woman is afraid to hear the truth. You're afraid to hear the truth. And the man, you're afraid to tell the truth. When women say all men lie, they telling the truth, because they can't hear the truth. They can only hear lies. So when the God sends somebody, the God is just going to pull the sheets off of it and have them tell the truth. And this is what got Jesus killed. But moving on, these conditions are the same conditions that prevailed under the story of Moses and the children of Israel being pulled out of Egypt. Now, before you think I'm talking about we getting ready to go to Africa or something like that, we ain't going nowhere. This is our land. The whole earth is ours. The whole universe is ours. The material thing is ours, and everything in between the material thing is ours. It all belongs to us. We ain't going nowhere unless we decide we want to go somewhere. If we want to stay right here, that's what we're going to do. See, because God is going to move the wicked. I know the preachers teach y'all that he going to come down and take the righteous off and leave the wicked down here. But no, Jesus said that the meek shall inherit the earth. That's a lie from hell, ladies, telling y'all that Jesus going to come down and turn y'all into spirits and swoop you off, and they're going to lead the earth into to the wicked. No, that's not going down like that. Jesus is already here. Christ is already here. Christ is in you. But let me go to this whole thing that we're talking about, this story of Moses. It's difficult for you to hear what I'm saying in many cases, because you've been told something, and you've been told it as a result of misinformation over generations. We was given the Bible. We were given the Bible. But when our forefathers was given the Bible, 90% of the Bible had been removed. They only had 10% of the available, say, King James Version, because all the things and principles that dealt with freedom, justice, equality, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, freedom from slavery, freedom from oppression, all the scriptures that had to do with that were removed. And they did a study and they said that we see that slavery and Christianity is not incompatible. So they were able to make you Christians, ladies, but you were never given the Christianity or the teachings of Jesus. And I tell you all the time, if you really want to know what Jesus was like, read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, without cross-examining or cross-checking with the other books. Since he was the master, read what the master said without verifying it with others. You're going to discover that Jesus didn't sound nothing like your preacher. But let me continue. For generations, our forefathers had no concept except that which was within about freedom, because they didn't have a Bible or a spiritual guidance system that dealt with them at the freedom level. They only had slaves obey your master. They only had the book of Philemon. Philemon was a slave and he became a Christian, and he decided that, wait a minute, I'm free in Christ. Paul had to write him and tell him, no, baby, you still a slave. You obey. You stay in slavery. Read the book of Philemon in the Bible. You will see. Jesus was not about all of that, though. And they took this stuff out of the Bible and left that kind of stuff in there. And then finally, when you had to, this is the reason they didn't want you to read. So this is the legacy and the DNA orientation that has been given to our forefathers over several decades, hundreds of years. So when you get your hands on the real the King James, first of all, you won't go outside of that. So you won't research and cross-examine the whole thing. So you don't know anything except what's between the pages of that book. And you can get the principles of Jesus from the book, yes. But now you take those principles, brothers and sisters, and you apply those principles to your life. Going back to the point we want to deal with, the one solution for Black America. And we're dealing with the story of Moses. And before I read that story, I want to read something out of the Course in Miracles to kind of set you up for something that's going to help us in our reasoning as we read the story of Moses. In the Course in Miracles, lesson number 79, the title of it is, Let Me Recognize the Problem So It Can Be Solved. This is a lesson on the process of solving problems using the higher faculties. Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. A problem cannot be solved if you do not know what it is. Even if it is really solved already, you will still have the problem because you will not recognize that it has been solved. This is the situation of the world. The problem of separation, which is really the only problem, has already been solved. Yet the solution is not recognized because the problem is not recognized. If you don't recognize the problem, you won't recognize the solution. So the solution can be in your face, but you have either misdefined what the problem is, or you've never considered what the real problem is. And if you misdefined what the problem is, then the real solution might be in your face, but is not in the parameter, is not in the area of acceptable solutions. So you won't really see the solution. In other words, it's sort of like asking a yes or no question. A question that requires a yes or no. See, when you ask a yes or no question, or a question that requires that you say that the answer is either yes or no, then you are both setting up the question, which is the problem, and the solution, which is the choice between the two answers that they can give you? Yes or no? So if somebody comes in with a maybe, then that's not part of the solutions in there, even though that might be the solution. You see, everyone in this world seems to have his own special problems, yet they are all the same and must be recognized as one if the one solution that solves them all can be accepted. Who can see that a problem has been solved if he thinks the problem is something else? Even if he is given the answer, he cannot see its relevance. This is the position which you find yourselves now. You have the answer, but you are still uncertain about what the problem is. A long series of different problems seem to confront you, and as one is settled, the next one and the next one and the next one arise. There seems to be no end to them. Now listen, there is no time in which you feel completely free of problems and at peace. The temptation to regard problems as many is the temptation to keep the problem of separation unsolved. So I'm going to just leave that there to help you to understand something, that the problem, you got to look at the problem. And when you look at the problem, you have to look at the problem for what it is. You may think that the problem is white supremacy. You may think that the problem is racism. You may think that the problem is this or that. You may think that the problem is the church and the church doctrines. You may, whatever. You may think that the problem is men. You may, and if you define the problem, then there are going to be acceptable answers that you can consider. So what I am suggesting, since we've been in this country 400 plus years and still have not solved the problem, maybe we need to look at it differently and see what the problem may be so that we could get an answer. There has been just as much killing of black men today as there were in slavery, as there was in Jim Crow, as there was in the 60s. It hasn't stopped. Redlining and all the things that we lament about over and over and march about and protest about and vote about, still in 2023 is still occurring. Maybe we have misdefined the problem. Maybe the problem has more to do with us than it has to do with them. Maybe it's a different definition that or a problem that we need to consider. When we read the Bible, brothers and sisters, you may not notice this because, again, we have not been taught the way God deals with humanity. You will notice that God deals with humanity in terms of nations and groups. If you read the story of the children of Israel in anywhere in the Bible, you will notice that he dealt with them as a nation, and individuals were side notes to the nation. The individuals only were pointed out to show how they affected their behavior, affected the nation itself. You see, when Israel was crying for a king, God said, no, I'm going to give you the right way to do this. And they kept belly aching and belly aching and belly aching. And so he said, okay, I'm going to give you the king you want. And he gave him Saul. And this is what he's going to do. He's going to send your sons out to die. He's going to impoverish you. He's going to cause conflict all within your nation. He dealt with them as a nation of people. And America is no exception. You had Barack Obama for 8 years. Some of us didn't like Barack, but Barack was a sign. Barack was a setup on another level so that you could see the problem rise that was hidden under the underbelly of America. Barack was the setup so he could unleash the mind represented by Trump. But not only the mind represented by Trump, but the hidden mind that you don't know about that's being held by the liberals. See, they're comfortable as long as your problem don't affect them. They can talk about it. I'm talking about the liberals now, the white liberals. But see, now they are in an uproar because Trump and his ilk are challenging the very foundation of the country. And we're the ones scared because we know we're in the middle of it. So they're going to get us to vote for whoever they come up with, not because they're going to promise us something or do something for us, but because they got us in fear of Trump and what Trump might do. So we don't care what we're going to get as a result of our vote. As long as Trump don't come, this is the level of thinking that we engage in as a people. God is breaking it all up. You don't know that that's what that pandemic did. He shut them churches down so he can talk to us. Put us all in the house. We couldn't go nowhere for 2 years almost. And that's when God was talking. And now that we're able to come out the house, they ain't got nothing that they can say to us. And quiet as it's kept, by the end of this year, you're going to see the effects of it, of what has happened during that pandemic. You can take it or leave it alone. Going back to the story of Moses, I want to go to Exodus chapter 1. And I want to start off and read verse 8 through 10. And I want to show you God deals with things in terms of nations. The individual is just a side note to that based on how he or she affected the nation. But the whole thing is the nation and the national relationships. How can we solve our problem, brothers and sisters? What is the solution to the pain that we experience as a result of our not only our conduct, but the way we are treated? Let me look here in the book of Exodus and help you to see something. Exodus chapter 1, verse 8, it reads, "Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply and it come to pass that when there falls out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land." Now, I want to start there. See, why would they be worried about the children of Israel joining on to their enemies? Well, they would be worried about the children of Israel joining on to their enemies because of the way they was treating the children of Israel. So they had a right to be scared. But I want you to notice in verse 10 what Pharaoh said. Verse 9, he said to his people. He didn't tell the slaves what the plan was. The slaves just only saw the effect. They saw the effect of miseducation. They saw the effect of poison. They saw the effect of disease. They was getting the effect, but they couldn't pinpoint it of where it was coming from. They was even giving reports out to it. Black people are 90% to have cancer, or 100% to have this or that over the white man. They're telling you this, and you thinking that they're saying it only to say we got to do something. But they're telling us, broadcasting it, so that he's saying to his people, it's working what we are doing. So in verse 9, he said unto his people, look, The people of the children of Israel are more and mightier. So look at what he said. There's more of them and they're mightier than us. Do you think he told the children of Israel that? Do you think he told the children of Israel that it was more of them? Do you think he told the children of Israel that they were stronger? But they weren't wise. The children of Israel were not wise. So it says in verse 10, let us deal wisely with them. He's talking to his own people. You don't know nothing about the plan. All you know is that you are a victim of something that seems to be occurring and you can't put your finger on it, but you are feeling the effects of it. That's because Pharaoh didn't tell you. He told his people that. So now, in verse 10, it says that they were going to do this, and they began to do it. Well, the problem was it didn't work. It says in verse 12, the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and they grew. See, this didn't happen overnight. This was going on over a period of decades. You thinking that this was happening one day and next week and then. No, this happened over decades. They're watching, they're counting, they're observing, they're implementing, and you are getting the effects of it, but you don't know where it's coming from. Verse 13. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor, I should say. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage and mortar and brick and all manner of service in the field, and all their services wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives. Now he's talking to your women. The king of Egypt, verse 15, he's talking to your women now. When he was talking to his people, it didn't work. So he had to find some other way of getting this done. So it says he spoke to the Hebrew midwives of which the name was Siphar and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife, he's talking to the women, the Hebrew women, the slave women. When you sit upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, save her life. Why? Why is that necessary? To kill the male and save the female. But he was talking to the Hebrew women and telling them, but the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men, children alive. Now, how do we know this? Well, because it's going over decades and he's seeing this. It's not a thing that happened overnight. This is what's hidden in here that Reverend Know Nothing don't tell you about. This is going on over a protracted period of time. And they're doing the math. The Egyptians are doing the math and they're counting over a protracted period of time. So then he started rebuking them and they said they feared God and all this kind of stuff. So then Pharaoh charged his people. He goes back to his people. He first charged his people, this is what we're going to do. We got to deal with them wives. And then he started talking. His first step was to get the midwives, the Hebrew slaves, to do this. And then the second step was to charge his people when the midwives didn't take care of business. They didn't kill the boys. He went back to his people saying, every son that is born you shall cast in the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. So, now, remember, if you remember the story, Moses was a Hebrew. And I'm not going to go into the fact that this story did not happen when they say it happened. It's happening now. This is a story. This is what's going on in 2023. See, If you go back, you will discover there's no period in time where this story happened as outlined in the Bible, except in America. You won't find it, Reverend. You won't find 400 years of slavery, brother, except here. So now Moses was a Hebrew, and his mother decided to put him in the river, and you know the story, in the church. And so Moses grew up in Pharaoh's house, and he learned warfare. He learned the Egyptian ways. He learned all the secrets of the commandments. He learned all this stuff growing up in Pharaoh's house, because Egypt was the most powerful country on the planet. You see. So now, and somebody wrote, that's why they had to go back home to be counted in the census, so that they could know where each of them was. And you will see the first thing that they start doing is killing off the males, because they're killing off your source of knowledge, ladies. They're killing off your source of truth, ladies. You can't handle the truth, and we can't tell it. But they know where the truth lies. It lies in your males. And wisdom lies in you. This is why they saved the woman, because they're going to put a lie on your brain, and all you will accept are lies. And kill us if we tell the truth. So you protect us from telling the truth, and you can't hear the truth. But I'm going to tell it to you today. I'm going to tell it to you today. Moses grew up in the house of Pharaoh. He was taken into, see, these events, brothers and sisters, occur, and they appear to be, oh, by the way. But if you knew the power of your mind, and what the capacity to, you don't even realize that you are setting the stage even now for your future, just by thinking it. So it seems like Moses just got lucky, and his mama put him in. No, brothers and sisters, no. Ain't no luck going on this. Your passage through time is not at random. We are where we're supposed to be right now. Your passage through time and space is not at random. It is not luck. You weren't born by luck because you just got lucky and your particular sperm made it with the egg. No. So Moses goes into the house of Pharaoh. And if you go to chapter 2 of Exodus, start at verse 13, Moses is learning the way of war. He's learning the 42 negative confessions. He's learning the Ptah-hotep. He's learning the whole concept of Christ, the Savior, which came under Horus. He's learning all these things in Egypt as he's growing up in Egypt. He's learning how to run a civilization, how to run a nation. But when Moses started identifying with his brothers in the field, his Hebrew brothers, he walked out to assess them because he's already planning, I got to do something about this. This is my brothers and sisters out here, and I'm at the top here, and I'm doing this to them. I'm helping to implement this. So he walks among them to make an assessment of what has to occur. And the first thing he noticed before getting them free, and here's where we're going to go into the solution, brothers and sisters. Moses tried to correct his brothers in their relationship with one another in preparation for the experience of freedom. Because if you are a butthole before you're free, you're going to be a butthole after you're free. And if you remember the story, when they got out of Egypt, it was those who was making money and prospering in Egypt under slavery who had no job, so they had to leave. They were the ones murmuring and complaining. It was the civil rights leaders who had to leave. The civil rights leaders didn't want to leave Egypt because they had a comfortable lifestyle in Egypt. Moses had a comfortable lifestyle in Egypt too, but Moses understood where it come from. Moses understood that freedom and justice and equality are internal properties of humanity. So he goes out, and we'll just read it. Chapter 2 of Exodus, verses 13. When he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. They were fighting. And he said to the one that did wrong, so that tell you that Moses knew which one of them was in the wrong. So he spoke to him. He said, why are you hitting your fellow, your brother? And this is how that Negro responded. He said, who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me? Notice he didn't say us. Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. Now remember, Moses went out one day and he saw an Egyptian beating one of the Hebrews. So he looked and he saw that he could get away with it, and he killed it. He killed him. But he didn't know somebody knew about it. And it just so happened to be this Negro who was in the wrong. He knew about it. See, he was the one that would have turned Moses in. He would have won. He's the mind that would have fought against his own liberation. Do you intend to kill me? You ain't my judge. But really, the point I want to make of this verse 14 was that Moses understood what had to happen first before the people could experience freedom. And notice he did not take him out of Egypt before he started teaching them this. The first thing you have to do is, while you're in the situation, you have to learn what is causing the situation. Let me see the problem that it might be solved. If you don't recognize that you're the problem, you won't recognize that you're the solution. You won't know that the problem and the solution are located in the same place. You won't know it. So when the liberator comes, he's already free. He already knows what it feels like to be free. Moses was high up in the king's house. And so he understood all the laws of freedom, and he knew you had to become free in the system, because your freedom in the system is the catapult to get you free from the system. But as long as you're in bondage in the system, you will be a slave of the system. And so Moses tried to correct his brothers in preparation for freedom. And this is where we are right now. We have been misdefining the problem. The problem is not your man. The problem is not your woman. The problem is not that butthole brother or sister that you have. The problem is not the white man. The problem is not the Mexican man. The problem is not anything that's external to us, and you in particular. So what do we need to do? See, because God is setting the conditions up where the United States will thrive, but America got to go. America got to go. We have declared it When we took that oath 28 years ago in Washington, D.C., when we took that pledge, it was the day of at-one-ment. It is the day of atonement, at one with God. When you at one with God, what do you think God is going to do when you ask to be liberated? We took the pledge for you who didn't go for whatever reason. But so the situation is being set up. The situation is being moved, and you're all scared, and we can't get Trump in office. Trump's the best thing that ever happened to this country since the Civil War. Because Trump is pulling the sheets off of everybody. No pun intended when I talk about sheets. So what do we need to be doing at this time? You remember, if you've ever read the story of the children of Israel leaving Egypt, there was a mixed multitude that left. It wasn't just Hebrews. It was Egyptians. It was Midians. It was all kind of people joined in this liberation march. And this is why I'm telling you, this is the story that applies to us today. And this is why I'm saying the United States will live, because the United States is based on higher principles. It's just that the Caucasian didn't obey them. But you can't get rid of the principles. But there are those of all races that's going to be a part of this. But America got to go. And she is on her way out. And we're going to help her out by reconciling with our brother, reconciling with our sister, reconciling with our daughter, reconciling with our son, reconciling with whoever we think is our enemy. It doesn't mean that you got to go beg them for forgiveness or you got to say anything to them. A change of mind is all it takes. You don't have to say a word. Just change your mind about them. Release them. This is what forgiveness is. When you release your brother, you release yourself. When you release your brother, you release your country from the karmic debt that's hanging over its head. That's got to be paid. See, it's got to be paid not because it's just some mysterious force. It's being paid because your mind is holding the guilt of your behavior and your thinking. And as a result, it's calling that situation to you. So let's release it today so that we don't have to experience this karmic debt. Y'all want to call it karma? I'll call it karma. You can call it what you want. I'm telling you, your mind is an attractive force. You vibrate at a certain level. And the level that you vibrate on and the thoughts that you hold in your mind is the experience that you're going to have. So I'm saying the first step, reconcile with your brother, reconcile with your father, with your mother. Ladies, if you got a problem with your father, or men, if you got a problem with your mother or your father, if your children are wayward, and even if they don't want, listen, y'all better pay attention. You better pay attention. Because I know that you can see what's coming down the pipe. The escape, brothers and sisters, is forgiveness. And forgiveness is the forgiveness of yourself. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. Because it's going to be some white folk going in and some black folk that ain't. Reconcile. That is the solution. That is the problem. The problem is separation, and the separation is based on thinking that you are not connected to your brother. The problem of separation. You don't think that you're connected to your brother. So listen, I hope it's 8 o'clock and I got it. I'm out of here. I'll see you for Sunday school, 9:45 Sunday morning.